Hey, this is Dominic, and this is your home for the cutting-edge conversations on optimizing your personal performance, lighting up your sex life, and living a purpose-driven life of your own design.
These are the topics that Dominic and I have both struggled with in our own lives and still don't always get right. This is Brian. Welcome to the Great Man Podcast.
Guys, this Wednesday night, November 17th, I'm running a 90-minute masterclass on designing the next year of your life, 2022 edition. It's happening this Wednesday night. Now, we are less than a month and a half away from the new calendar year of 2022. And this is precisely the time of year where life speeds up. We let our habits go to hell. We limp across the finish line of this year, and we start next year feeling frenzied, exhausted. Don't let that happen to you. It is imperative that we carve out time to be really intentional about the man you want to become and the priorities that you want to execute on for the calendar year ahead. Invest 90 minutes of your time this Wednesday night with all of the members of the Great Man Masterminds who will be in attendance and many of our listeners from around the world for a 90-minute discussion on designing the next year of your life. All the information and the registration link is at the top of the show notes. Push pause, register now, and then we'll get into today's episode. Gentlemen, welcome to week number 7 of the Building Your Best Self series, a 13-episode mini adventure to call forth, to command forth your best self as you head into the year 2022. Now, it's amazing that we're already at week number 7 because we're at the midway point of this 13-episode mini adventure, and we've covered a lot of ground already, guys. You know, we started at the beginning of this journey asking 5 questions that every man must ask about the quality of his own life. We looked at your relationship with how you're managing your time. We talked about the decision to turn pro, that mindset shift to go after your highest purpose in life. We've talked about the importance of looking at your identity, the man you believe yourself to be, and consciously creating the man you want to become, that great man within in the years to come. And then last week, we spoke about the importance of consciously building your wolf pack, the men that you surround yourself with that call forth your best self. And actually, that's kind of timely because the reason why I'm rolling solo here today is because Brian and I typically record our episodes on Friday morning, but this Friday, we'll be with our wolf pack. Mastermind 1.0, the group of 20 men who are descending upon a retreat center in upstate New York called Menla. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but beautiful retreat center with like hundreds of acres of pristine land. The Dalai Lama's visited there, where the 20 men of Mastermind 1.0, our wolf pack, are coming together for 4 days and 3 nights to work on our inner worlds, which is really exciting. So I'm recording a solo episode here today, and Brian sends his regards. Now, the topic of today's conversation is going bold. And this is a continuation of the conversation that we had a few weeks ago around this decision to turn pro. Now, turning pro is a mindset shift, moving from the amateur status of going with what's safe and secure and known and predictable in your life, you know, kind of protecting and preserving what you have versus that scarier decision to turn pro, which is going after your ultimate purpose in life, pursuing and living in your greatest energy and making that commitment that that's what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. The decision to go bold, which is the conversation that we're having today, is taking it from a mindset shift, right? The mindset shift of turning pro, and going bold is about taking a specific action, making one bold move in your life that you are going to commit to in the year of 2022. Something tangible and actionable that has the ability and holds the potential to make a dramatic effect in your life. One bold decision, one bold action executed on has a much greater impact than a dozen safe moves, right? A dozen mini goals, a dozen safe goals can be out impacted by one bold action that's taken. And I have proof of that from my life, and I'll be sharing some stories with you in just a few moments. But what I first want to hit here, guys, is I have the opportunity of sitting atop a really powerful community that's now growing, the Great Man Within community. And I have a chance to talk with many of you. I have a chance to hear many of your stories in the Facebook group, in the emails you send, the direct messages you send, plus all the men in the various masterminds. One theme that I see, guys, is how many of you are standing right at the precipice of a massive breakthrough in your life, and yet you stay stuck in status quo because you've yet to make that bold move that is going to help you transcend the place that is standing between you and that next level. I want to read something to you that I put on social media this week that's gotten a lot of attention. You don't get to choose when your next level comes calling. I'll read that again. You don't get to choose when your next level comes calling. It's almost always before you're ready. It's almost always when it's inconvenient. But when the soul is ready, it sounds the alarm. You might want to panic. You might want to resist, and you might want to hide. But whatever you do, answer the damn call. Guys, when that next level comes calling, answer the damn call. Even when you don't have time, even when it's inconvenient, even when you're not ready for it, even when you don't have the money, even when you're scared, answer the damn call. Because the alternative is to stay stuck toiling around at the level that you're currently at, and over a period of time that will gnaw away at your insides. You see, guys, every man has a general sense of what level he's currently operating at and knows that a next level is available. Sometimes that next level is very tangible and specific for you. It could be that next role you want in your work. Could be that next income level that you aspire to. It could be about deepening your relationship intimacy, maybe going from being in a long-term relationship to proposing. Maybe it's about deciding to have a child for the first time. Sometimes that next level is very specific. And there's a whole number of barriers that stand between you and going after that next level. Sometimes it's far less clear. It's much more nebulous what that next level is, right? Meaning you can feel it. It's not that tangible. You can't quite put your finger on the specificity of what the next level is, but you know that where you're currently at is definitely not optimized. And the thing standing in between you and that next level is your ceiling of comfort, that comfort ceiling. And in that comfort ceiling are your fears, your cravings and aversions, the things that you're attached to, the comforts of where you currently are, the predictability, the safety of where you currently are, the fears of having to change that, or the fears of criticism, the fear of going after the thing you want and failing. But over the course of time, if you allow those fears to keep you stuck, you will start to resent the place that you're currently at. You'll start to doubt yourself, and the longer you stay mired in the status quo. So let's get really specific here, guys. Yesterday, I had the conversation with my physical trainer of mine, a massage therapist. His name is Joe Bartholomew. He runs Premier Sports Recovery. He does a lot of work on my legs with this technique called fascial stretch therapy that's like transformed my life. And Joe's a really great dude. He's a small business owner who's constantly asking me questions about the next level of, what he can do to grow his business and the mindsets. And he's like a sponge for this kind of info. And he said, Dominic, how long did it take for you to become so confident in yourself to make these bold decisions about, just like leaving the world of, financial services behind and, making this your work and just doing big things? And it really got me thinking about, I don't know if I have a good answer for the question of how long it took me, but I have some really potent answers for you around the moments in time where I stepped into a new level of confidence. And all of those moments required a bold move on my part. Now, before I get into the specific stories, I want to say one more table setting thing. Personal development is often a game of incremental 1% improvements compounded over a long period of time. James Clear talks about this, right? The 1% gains, the 1% improvements, the small changes that you can make in your life every single day, day over day, has a tremendous compounding effect over the course of your life. Just think about it. If you did one more push-up every single day, by the end of the month, you'd have an extra 30 push-ups at the end of that month that you're doing. If you're running on a treadmill and you move up, like 1/10 of a mile per hour, every time you go on the treadmill, by the end of the month, you'll be up whatever it is, 3 miles per hour by the end of the month. That's significant. You do that by the end of the month, by the end of the year, whether it's with your financial savings, your physical well-being, those have a transformational effect over a long period of time. However, there comes a time where the incremental 1% change is not enough for you to surmount that ceiling of comfort. It requires a bold move to move across that Grand Canyon-sized chasm between where you currently are and that next level. Okay? Let me share with you a specific moment in my life. I'll give you a couple of 2 times where a bold move really turned out the way that I expected it to, beyond what I could have expected to, and one bold move that turned out to be a, quote, temporary failure. So back in 2016, I left a 15-year corporate career in financial services, and I became an entrepreneur for the first time. Now, I had 0 clients, 0 pipeline, 0 revenue coming into that year of 2016. I had a general idea that I wanted to help people overcome their obstacles, beat burnout, and achieve the life that they wanted to live. That was as specific as I'd gotten. So I knew that going from a world of corporate where there's a lot of structure and a lot of community, going into a very lonely, unstructured world of entrepreneurship, that I needed to make a bold move and find a community and find a community of people who had been successful in building their business around this. What I ended up finding was a world-class school called Thought Leaders Business School in Australia that required a $25,000 investment just to be a part of that program, let alone the cost of flying around the world, putting myself up, all the meals, etc. And so what I did was I ended up pulling the trigger on this very scary financial investment that required me to fly around the world 4 times a year. We met quarterly in Australia. Think about this, guys. Every 90 days, I had to leave my territory for a minimum of 10 days to 14 days, right? Taking me out of my business for a period of, 15 to 20% of my production time every quarter, and plopping down probably about $35,000, $40,000 between the investment, the travel, all of that, to go become part of a community that could teach me how to ramp up my business in a short period of time. That scared the shit out of me. And I also knew a bold move needed to be made if I wanted to ramp up my business quickly and to get out of my own head and to learn from people who had been successful before me. So here's what happened. At my very first immersion in May of 2016, I was sitting down next to a woman named Georgia, who had built $1 million practice, very successful in coaching and speaking and mentorship. And she asked me to pitch her my coaching program that I'd never sold to anybody before. And she's like, all right, Dominic, sell me on your coaching program. And I said, okay, it's a 90-day program. We meet once a week. I'm going to teach you how to break through your obstacles, how to beat burnout, and how to create better habits around your time and your energy management so you could do the things you want to do in your life. She's like, okay, that sounds pretty good. How much are you charging? And I said, $3,000. And her face scrunched up and she's like, nah. And I'm like, no, too much? She's like, no, it's way too low. What the hell are you doing charging $3,000 for that? I'm like, 4,000? Shrugged her shoulders. She's like, yeah, you're getting closer. And I'm like, 5,000? And she looked at me and she said, does that number make you throw up in your mouth a little bit? I'm like, yeah. Who the fuck's going to pay me $5,000 for a 90-day program when I've never had a single coaching client before? And she looks me dead in the eye and she says, there's your number. And inside my body, I had all sorts of anxiety, all sorts of reasons why you can't do this. My inner critic was screaming at me, no way. As soon as you put that number forward, you're going to have all this resistance. And she just looked at me and said, if you are feeling excited and nervous, a little bit of throw up, that's the number. And I want you to go back and not make a single offer less than that $5,000. Do you hear me? So when I went home in my first 90 days as an entrepreneur, I started having conversations with prospective clients, having 0 clients, 0 references, 0 social proof. And I signed up 9 clients at $5,000 for 90 days apiece. That one conversation I had with Georgia, where she talked me out of a $30,000 coaching program to a $5,000 coaching program, was worth $18,000. $18,000, which almost paid for the investment I paid to go to that program to begin with in that first 90 days. Just that one conversation alone made me $18,000. Guys, think about this for a second. I had to make a bold move to say, I'm going to fly to Australia. I'm going to have the courage to invest this time and to invest this money, to surround myself with people who have done this before me, to learn from them, because I don't want to toil around on my own trying to figure this thing out when I could do it much more quickly from a proven system. And it worked. Second story, 1 year later, I was looking to level up my game. What ended up happening? I ended up encountering a couple of really high-powered, off-the-grid coaches who don't have websites, who only work with like leaders. And they started putting me through this really seductive process of courtship, learning a lot about me and kind of, speaking to this higher king inside of me that no one else had been able to speak to. And also deconstructing my bullshit and calling me out on crap that no one had had the courage to do. And when they sat me down after like 2 or 3 weeks worth of real courtship, where I felt a level of trust and I felt this fear that I knew nothing about them, and also a deeper sense of knowing that these people held the key to this next level that I could show up at. When we sat down to have the big boy discussion around what they were going to charge me, when they said, Dominic, we want to work with you for 2 months, 60 days, every day. And we're going to be talking for hours every single day. From the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, we're going to be in contact. We're going to help you break through these limiting beliefs you have around money and intimacy and the fact that you think you're still in Sex Addicts Anonymous, because at that time I was, and they're like, you're not a sex addict. We're going to get you out of there. Long story short, how much do you think a program like this would cost? I said, I have no idea. I don't know, $10,000. They laughed in my face. They said, it's $50,000. And I nearly shit my pants. And they said, if you want this, it's $50,000. And it's going to be worth every penny. And if you don't get what you want to out of this and more, we'll give you every single penny of your money back. And so I made the decision in that moment to write them a check for $50,000. And these are people I didn't even know 3 weeks earlier. Guys, I swear to God, when I went to sleep that night, I had a mini panic attack. It was almost like, I don't know if you guys ever seen the show Lost. It was one of my favorite shows of all time. Thinking that I maybe have just been taken. Sawyer, who's the con artist. Did someone just take me? Like, they don't have websites. I have no references for these people. I met them at a conference. I wrote them a $50,000 cash check. And again, this was at the very early stages of my business where I had more money going out than coming in. What ended up happening was I ended up showing up in such a huge way for those 60 days, making a bold move, and then showing up being worthy of that investment every single day. You know what I'm saying here, guys? I didn't put the onus on them to be worth the $50,000. I put the onus on me to be worth that $50,000 investment, along with, them showing up the way they said they were going to. And they helped to change my life. I left Sex Addicts Anonymous. They taught me how to command coaching packages where within a few months of that, I was commanding $50,000 for 2 to 3 month coaching engagements. And eventually, a few years later, I did a podcast about this maybe about 8, 9 months ago, where I was able to command a $150,000 individual one-on-one coaching practice for 12 months. I had to be willing to transcend my comfort ceiling, all the fear, all the safety, all the predictability of what I known to go to that next level. And those things paid off for me. Now, I want to tell you about a story where it didn't work out for me the way that I thought it would. and yet it still worked out because it was a bold move. Back in 2016, at the very infancy of starting my own business, when I had switched from Prudential Financial Services to become an entrepreneur, I did so with the thought that I was going to become kind of like this internet guru, where I was going to be selling all of my products and services online in this massively scalable format, just like I'd see people like Lewis Howes do and other things. And so what I ended up doing was I invested $2,000 in Lewis Howes' program on how to build 7-figure webinars and how to sell your programs on webinar series. And I took his program and I went online. I created this 90-day coaching program that I thought was going to go crazy. And I bought into this idea that selling webinars and selling coaching programs online was going to be so easy. The money was just going to start rolling in. And after 3 months of working on my program, after building my website, after launching this webinar, following his 7-figure webinar program series to a T, when I launched my first webinar for free, having people it was a free webinar so that people could sign up to learn about my 90-day coaching program. One single person signed up for my free webinar. One person, after 4 days of Facebook marketing, one person signed up for a free webinar. Not a paying person. One person for a free webinar. And guys, I was shattered. That entire weekend, my life flashed before my eyes because I had these visions when I left the corporate world that this was going to be my future. And I was devastated. I was terrified because everything that I thought I'd left the business world for, the corporate world for, all of a sudden just evaporated in front of my eyes. And for that weekend, when I pulled the plug on this abysmal failure where nothing worked the way that I thought it would, I sobbed. I cried. I was in despair. And after 48 hours of feeling sorry for myself, and actually, no, I don't want to call it feeling sorry for myself. After coming to grips with the fear and the fact that I'd hit a complete dead end and failed in this particular way, I was able to pick myself back up and say, that didn't work. What's next? This reminds me of something I heard Tom Bilyeu, right, who runs Impact Theory. I had a chance to see him speak in 2016 at A-Fest. He said, I would rather run 200 miles an hour in the wrong direction so that I could get information about what's working and what's not than to just walk timidly 1 mile an hour, 2 miles an hour in a direction so I could avoid the discomfort of flaming out abysmally. And that always stuck with me. I went 200 miles an hour around this thing, right? I invested in a program. I went after, in those 3 months, intensely working on launching my website, building the webinar series, and then launching it only to find out that I just didn't have the formula. I didn't have the program. I didn't have something of what people wanted. I learned it quickly enough that instead of taking 12 months, 24 months, and then finding out it didn't work, I got that information and feedback very quickly. And I was able to pivot. And instead, I found out that keynote speaking and found out that one-on-one coaching ended up becoming my bread and butter for the next year and a half. I did very well that way. Guys, I see so many of you sitting there on the fence, thinking for days, for weeks, for months, for years about this thing you want to do. And when you're doing it as a lone wolf, you're not talking about it, you're not working with coaches, you're not working in community, your inner critic becomes the loudest voice, giving you all the reasons why you need to play it safe, why you need to do it slow. You got the family you have to take care of. You got to, work with your budget. You got to, it's not the right time. You don't have the time to do it. All of those reasons are fear masquerading as practicality, as Jim Carrey would say it. Fear masquerading as practicality. And you have to be really honest with yourselves about it, guys. Yes, of course, you have responsibilities to your family. You have responsibilities to your budget. And over the course of time, it's just fear talking. So my question for you is, what is the one bold fucking move in the one area of your life that matters to you that you've been putting off? That it's now finally time to step up and say, no more status quo. I'm ready to make that leap because it scares the shit out of me. And also because I know it holds the most potential for my growth. Guys, I have been making bold moves, at least one bold move a year, every single year for a decade. Every single year for a decade. And I can't tell you the compound effect of just one executed bold move per year for a course of a decade. It's revolutionary. And what I'm going to invite you to do, and this is something that I'm really excited about, you guys have been hearing me talk about it for weeks now, is on Wednesday, November 17th, I'm running a masterclass on how to design the next year of your life, 2022. And we are going to be talking about how to design and make that one bold move in your life that will absolutely have a transformative effect of you moving from this level to the next level. And I'm going to be sharing with you all 10 of my bold moves over this last decade and how each of them have had a compounding, transformative, revolutionary effect that has allowed me to live a life totally in alignment with my purpose, living in alignment with my great man, and feeling a sense of freedom and command in my life where I'm no longer afraid to make these bold moves. Well, I'm afraid and I make the moves anyway. Like we talked about this before. Courage is not acting without fear. Courage is knowing what fear feels like and acting anyway, right? Fear is wetting your pants. Courage is acting with wet pants. And that's what Dan Sullivan has to say. So in the show notes for Wednesday, November 17th from 7 to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, I'm running a 90-minute masterclass on how to make that one bold move. Here's how to hone in on the bold move, how to take action on that bold move, and then how to set up systems of accountability so that you actually execute on that. New Year's resolutions, guys, are meaningless. They're usually really boring. Most guys usually pick something that I, quote, should be doing, out of obligation. I should be getting my body more healthy. I should be focusing my time. It's boring bullshit. You're not inspired by it. And that's usually why most people fall off and never execute on it. A bold move that makes your balls tingle, that you can feel the reality of that change and how it will help you move from this level to the next level. That's the shit that you want to go after. There's a source of pride and motivation in that. And when you're surrounded by a community of men who are doing it, right? That's a system of accountability. And you're going to be around a community of men doing this stuff. All the men of the mastermind are going to be at that masterclass call. Then you start to execute on that thing. Gives you the courage. Just like Georgia gave me the courage of moving my offering from $3,000 to $5,000. I didn't have the courage. I needed to outsource and latch my wagon to her confidence to say, okay, I can do this. And she proved me right. Or, my actions proved her right, I suppose you could say, where I made an extra $18,000 after a 20-minute conversation with her. Those conversations, those life-changing revelations are all around you. If you stop lone wolfing, if you make a commitment to being bold and step into an arena where men are doing this work. The invitation is in the show notes. It is time to go bold. Register for the masterclass, and I'll see you there on Wednesday, November 17th, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Hey, Brian and I wanted to thank you for the ratings and reviews that you leave us. We read every single one of them, and they're so helpful in helping us to understand what resonates with you and helps us determine which topics that we use in the future. So if you found this episode to be of particular value to you, will you please leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts so that we know that this is the kind of topic you want to hear more about? And it also helps other prospective listeners to figure out where they can dive in first. Thank you.